ファビルカンパニーの中山です。コンテンツマーケティングインスティテュートのファウンダーでコンテンツマーケティングワールドを主催しているJoeさんに株式会社 JADE 代表取締役社長の伊藤さんと私とでオンラインインタビューをしました。それではどうぞ。
And my take is that right now we're going through what I'm calling the third stage of content marketing. So the first stage in North America happened after the 9/11 catastrophe in New York. So this is 2001, 2002. We went into a minor recession, financial recession here, and a lot of advertising budgets got cut. And at the same time, Google and search engines came on the scene, and companies were asking, well, how do I get found? How does this whole thing work? And then you had thousands and thousands of corporate blogs created and articles that were written. And so that's the first stage. The practice wasn't called content marketing at that point, but it was just starting. And so you sort of saw the ball moving where corporations were, well, if we want to get found online, we're going to have to create content and actually talk about something interesting. And then that rolled into the second stage of content marketing, which was 2008, 2009. And that was right after the Great Recession, where we had the real estate financial disaster go on. At the same time, social media really took off, even though, Twitter happened in 2007 and you had Facebook before then, but corporations really didn't take it seriously until 2009, 2010. And I would say 2010 is probably the year that content marketing as a phrase started to take hold, because it wasn't called content marketing before then. In North America, it was called custom media, custom publishing, customer media. And then it really took off because people are like, well, how do I build an audience on Twitter and on Facebook and then later on Instagram? So you had corporations actually start to hire, as you were talking about before, Nori, we hired content marketers, we hired content strategy people to start to figure out how do we integrate this whole effort into our marketing organization. Innovative companies from all over the world create content marketing organizations that are really starting to work. They're building audiences. Now they're starting to actually purchase properties like a media company would. And you're really seeing not a lot of difference in some cases between a marketing organization and a media company. Now we're in the third stage of content marketing. And this has happened because the coronavirus, we've gotten hit pretty hard economically. This is we're anticipating it's going to be pretty bad. We're going to have unemployment here that's going to hit for a long time. And then you're going to have another restructuring of the marketing budget. So, and that's really all these three stages are. They're restructurings of the marketing budget to take less emphasis off of traditional marketing activities like advertising and more emphasis on, new marketing activities like content marketing, but really around building audiences that will employ a new business model. So it takes a long time for change to happen, and there's nothing wrong with advertising. It just has too much marketing budget. So we're going to see some of that marketing budget come over to content marketing again over the next 2 years. And, as we see the coronavirus continue to evolve, I guess, internationally, this thing it's going to take a while. Even with a vaccine, everyone knows this is going to take a long time for us to get over. And so you have a lot of people, it's almost all set up perfectly for content marketing. You have a lot of people working home from office. They're trying to, how do we communicate with our customers when sometimes we can't see them in person? This all comes down to valuable, relevant, consistent content generation. And then the hope is, and I'll end here with that question, but the hope is, will corporations do it in a way that's intelligent and not just start throwing stuff against the wall like they have in the past where, we have to be on all these social media channels. We have to do blogs, we have to do videos. It's like, no, you have to do it strategically, which means you have to say no to some things and yes to other things, and focus on what you're really good at and focus on building small audiences to start with and then larger once you get a foot in the door. You can, if you wanted to build a content and marketing initiative and you just wanted to say, I want to sell this product and I want to draw in as many buyers as possible. You can do that through a very simple content marketing initiative where you're saying, okay, well, we're going to do a webinar series, or we're going to do a research report or a white paper series, or we're going to launch this blog, and and the whole goal is to get people to sign up and try our product. Let's say if it's a software company, you want in on the beta or try a free trial. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. I think the thing that if we look at the way companies are evolving today, where I want a more holistic view of content marketing is think about your product. Products are evolving so quickly today. Companies don't necessarily just say, "Oh, we're just going to launch this product and that's it." It doesn't have. I mean, look at your Amazons of the world. Look at JD. Look at all these other. Look at companies that have done this, and they have all sorts of different products and services that they're offering. Well, if you believe that you want to be a growing company, you say, okay, well, we're going to target this audience, and we're first going to build a relationship with this audience, and then from that audience, this portion might want this product, and this portion might want this product, and this portion might want this product, or all of them together. The second way to look at it is, what if you're not sure about your product? What if you don't know yet? What if your product continues to evolve and change? Well, if that's the case, then you go out and you build your audience first and build a loyal relationship with them, and then they will tell you. I mean, then you have a one-to-one connection with them. They'll tell you whether or not your product's going to work for them or not. I mean, if you look at the history of Amazon, I mean, Amazon sold, it was all, they were an online bookstore. And then he said, okay, now we have all these connections with book lovers. And those book lovers told Amazon exactly, here's what we want this. We want to buy this. We want to buy this. Can you do this? Can you do that? And now Amazon is pretty much in every industry that you could possibly imagine. So I like the idea of building an audience first instead of saying I want to sell more stuff, because if you just say you want to sell more stuff, you're only focusing on what you want to do as a company. It's very self-serving, more selfish communication. If you say, I really want to help this group of people live better lives or get better jobs, and if we do that really well, they will become customers of us. So, long story short, you can use content marketing for pretty much any type of marketing goal. You want to keep your customers loyal? You already have them? Great. You can do a loyalty initiative. You're trying to get new buyers in? Fine. You can do a lead generation initiative. You can do all those things. But if you look at what's the value of building a loyal audience over a long period of time, well, if you did that first and then sold second, I think what we'd find out is that your cost of sales would probably come down significantly. I guess in theory you'd be correct. I guess you'd find I'd have a hard time disagreeing with you on that. But I've never, like, if you when I say buyer persona, most basic buyer personas are done on on a consumer level. Where does the person live? How much money do they have? What lifestyle do they live? What kinds of things do they buy? What religion are they? Those types of things. What I would rather focus on is their informational needs, the needs that go one level down from that. Because if you look at an audience group from Japan or from the United States, that let's say they're plant managers that are outsourcing their electronic components to China and India. Well, if that plant manager is in Japan and that plant manager is in the United States, but they both are trying to have the same informational goals, because if you look at the informational needs, and maybe this is more of a business to business issue, but if you look at those things, I don't care about religion. I don't care where they came from. It doesn't matter to me, because all I'm focusing on is how they can live better lives or get better jobs from that perspective. Is it probably more challenging? Absolutely. But on a business to business standpoint, I don't see any difference at all. I need to do a better job. I'd like to keep my job, or I'd like to grow my company. Doesn't matter what religion you are. But also, I mean, I'm biased, because if you ask me, I love business to business content marketing way more than business to consumer. When I first started in content marketing, I did a project for Hewlett Packard, and the audience was about 150 people. They were basically 150 senior level managers that we were targeting. And the project actually was every month we would put together a series of books and send them directly to them and through the post. And we would have a little overview of, here's your books this month. Here's what we would, it's all about leadership. And I love that project because then you could really focus on, oh man, what are the needs of these 150 people and how do we put this thing together? But then you realize, well, you do the same process if it's 1,500 people or 15,000 or 1.5 million. It's just you can really focus on the informational needs. How do we get the feedback so we really understand their informational needs and wants? If you don't, so that maybe that's not an issue of country, maybe it's an issue of the company. How well do they know this audience, and how much more information do I need to get so that I can put together a content marketing mission that makes sense, that will actually cut through all the clutter? This is probably the most important question because you probably heard me say this on stage, but content marketing programs generally don't fail because of performance reasons. They fail because somebody in the organization, generally an executive, doesn't understand what they're doing. And because they don't have an understanding, and maybe that's because the marketing person didn't set the right expectations, that's why you get at the 6-month mark, they're saying, we want more sales. Why aren't we getting more sales? And you're just like, stop doing that. Let's go do advertising. Let's go do something. So the most important thing that a content marketing professional needs to do, and this is almost step one, is how do I set the right expectations internally so that this program has a chance of success? So that's all about, generally, if there's a chief marketing officer or the chief financial officer or the CEO, depending on the size of the company, they have grown up believing or seeing that marketing is all about disrupting somebody else. I guess a better word is interrupting. How do I get somebody's attention when they really don't want to pay attention to me, to say, here's my product, please buy it? So that when you show them something that isn't even pitching the product, they're looking at you like, are you crazy? This doesn't make any sense to me. So that's when you have to talk about building an asset. So what content marketing does, and so basically you have to go back to and educate them and say, well, why are we doing this? Well, we're trying to build an audience. Okay, why is it important to build an audience? We build an audience because then you go into your hypothesis. We believe that if we build an audience that trusts us and we have a relationship with this audience, that they will be, they will be better customers. They will buy more stuff from us. They will buy different products from us. Then you have to actually build their hypothesis, because you don't know. Nobody in marketing knows anything until you go and test it out. And then you get to the crucial question, which is what you're asking, is the time. How long is this going to take? And it's always longer than you think it's going to take. You get to monetization anywhere between 12 and 24 months. This is the biggest issue why it's easier for entrepreneurs than it is for people in companies to do content marketing. Because if you go to your chief marketing officer or your chief financial officer and you say, we're going to do this initiative, but it's going to take us 18 months, they're going to say, you're done. You're out. Go find another job. So you almost have to run it as a beta test and say, look, you don't stop doing anything else, right? You're still going to do your advertising. You're still going to do your search engine optimization. You're still going to do your lead gen components, but you're going to say, look, here's this thing over here that we're building, and it's not going to happen right away. And you have to tell them that right off the bat. Like, don't set we think we could do something in 6 months. Even if you think you could do something in 6 months, you don't say that. You say, we believe that it's going to take us 12 to 18 months until we see an audience that's large enough where we can start to monetize that audience. And you do that two ways. First of all, you have the initial business statement that says this is what we're trying to do when you get approval for the budget. And the second thing you do, which almost no one does, and it's the most important, is you educate ongoing to the audience, to your internal team that is in charge of your budget. So if this goes, let's say it goes to your chief marketing officer and chief financial officer, you should send them other case studies, other examples of people doing this correctly in Japan and in the United States and in Europe about why this is happening and why we're doing this, and keep setting that vision, keep building them. Here's the vision of what we're trying to do. A lot of marketers don't want to do that because they're like, well, hey, why do I want to do my job? They don't understand that the most important job of a marketing person is first and foremost internal communications, which seems so silly. Like we really shouldn't have to do this. But even though content marketing has been around for a long time, it's still very small portion, and people don't know about it. So that's the way we have to go. We need to set a longer term timetable, and we need to share the wins when we can, but keep that timetable as long as possible. And then if you can do upside surprise and say, great, it's 9 months and we've monetized it. Fantastic. That's wonderful. But we know that generally 12 to 24 months is when you start to build an audience, a minimum viable audience, where you can then start to monetize and show proof. I mean, this is 20 years ago when I first started in content marketing, but I ran a content marketing division in a media company. And we were a very, very small division. And this was in 2002, 2003. So right after during the first stage of content marketing. Mm-hmm. And I really believed that our department was going to get cut because everyone believed in advertising. And so I said, okay, well, the only way that we're going to keep this division around is not just by our overall financial performance. We're going to have to tell them what we're trying to do and why it's important to the company. So that's why is this important to the company? And you're saying you're building an asset, you're building something that can grow and grow and grow exponentially for a long period of time and add to the overall value of the company. So every 2 weeks, back then it was an yellow inner office envelope, and I used to put content marketing magazine examples, and I used to make copies of examples, and because there wasn't much going on the internet at that time. And that department, by the way, is still around today. Almost 20 years later, that department stayed because I think we communicated the effectiveness of the why behind it. And especially, I think what really bothers me as a practitioner is when you see a program that's working that gets cut, and you're like, how does that happen? They're building an audience, they're starting to monetize it, it's working, and it still gets cut. And then you realize, oh, people in the organization didn't know what they were doing. They didn't get it. And then I have to go back to the content marketer that started it and say, you did everything right except communicate internally what you were doing. And it doesn't have to be really formal. It could be, here's what I saw in the, here's a story that I saw in the news this week that's relevant to what you're doing. It could be I like a regular email update probably is, or if you have a Slack or a Discord or something like that you use internally to communicate, maybe a certain thread, anything like that can work. It depends on the culture of your organization, on what works best, on how people engage in it. And you could write down as your marketer, okay, put it on your calendar. Every 2 weeks in the morning on a Friday, I'm going to send something. And then you can create your own editorial calendar for that and say, okay, this one I want to talk, this one should be a case study. This one should be why building an audience is important. This one should be on mergers and acquisitions. Let's say that I was hired as a content marketing manager at a company right now. Before I launched any content marketing initiative, I probably would launch the educational program first. The last thing that you would want to do is say, oh, here's our web traffic. No. You don't want to report any of that. They can take that and use it in all sorts of horrible ways. So I think that's the difference, where you're not reporting your activity, you're reporting the philosophy, and you're reporting what you're almost saying, here's what we could be. And the only way to do that is by building a loyal audience. It doesn't necessarily happen through adding to the advertising or the public relations budget or something like that. So you're basically negotiating for budget. You're negotiating and saying, this is the future. This was what we're trying to do. I wish we didn't have to do that, but unfortunately we have to. I could take web stats going down and tell you that it's a good thing and say we cleared out all the bots and cleared out all the bad traffic, because what I'm giving you now is pure good traffic. You don't know, but that's why really we focus on subscribers. And if you said we're growing our opt-in e-newsletter subscribers, and those people are opening at a 40% plus rate, and those people who open are more likely to buy our product because those are the things that ultimately we're going to want to share. Not just not that web traffic is a superficial, but it can be manipulated. When you're trying to break through all the clutter, you need to look at how competitive the landscape is from not only a content standpoint, but from a media standpoint. So if I'm looking to, like, for example, let's say that I wanted to build Content Marketing Institute. Today, we build Content Marketing Institute starting from a blog. So textual plus image content in 2007. There was an opportunity there because there wasn't a lot of content in text at the time, easily found in search engines because there wasn't a lot of competition there. Today, if I did that, it would be very, very challenging unless I was so niche with that. Like it would have to be financial content marketing in the northern part of Japan. Video YouTube is also very competitive. Let's say that you have something that's not visual in nature, but you still need to inform on it. You'd say, well, maybe using audio is better than video in some cases. Like YouTube, for example, the payoff on YouTube is huge, but it takes a long time and a lot of work to build a subscriber base on YouTube. So let's say I look at that from a video standpoint and I say, okay, I'm not going to build my base on YouTube. I'm going to build my base through a podcast. I can almost bet you in any category that it's less competitive in audio than it is in video. At the same time, it's just less production. If you go out and you want to do a halfway decent video series on YouTube, it's going to cost 10 times more at least than it would cost you in a podcast. Because generally doing a podcast is free. It's almost no money from not the promotion, but the creation of it doesn't cost you very much to do. At the same time, if you just look at the audio category, you have voice search and who knows? I mean, I've been wrong about a lot of predictions, but I'm under the assumption that in 5 to 10 years, most of our search queries will be coming via voice and not via typing. So I think it's a secondary. Yeah. So yes, I think there's an opportunity in all types of media, not necessarily video. What story are you trying to say to what audience? And then once you build that sweet spot and figure out your differentiation, then you could say, well, where's the best place to tell that story ongoing? So, but if you're asking, okay, all things being equal, what are the 2 things that I would do first? I'm old school. I would do an email newsletter or I would do a podcast. Because those, first of all, email subscribers are so critically important. It's almost like people forgot that you could actually do a quality email newsletter because there was so much spam out there. So people gave up and said, there's so much email spam. Let's go try something on YouTube, or let's go do something on Instagram, or go do something somewhere else. So I think we got it wrong as marketers a lot because we're chasing after numbers and chasing after where the most audience is and not chasing after the best audience for us. Google Plus everyone's putting their money into Google Plus and it's going to be shut down. And so you had all these companies that put all kinds of money and resources and built an audience on Google Plus, and then Google comes around and says, "Hey, we're done." I'd like to use that as an example because if you look at the subscriber hierarchy and you look at Facebook or YouTube or Instagram or even iTunes podcasts for any of those, we have no control over what those companies do with our connection with the audience. So that's what I always say. If you have a YouTube subscriber, it is not your subscriber. It is YouTube's subscriber that you helped YouTube get. Maybe the best way to build a base is on YouTube. You've decided that the best way to tell a story is through video. The best way to build an audience is through YouTube. Okay, so what do? We build our subscribers on YouTube and then we move them up the subscriber hierarchy to email as quickly as we can to make sure that we have that first party data, we have that opt-in permission. All the privacy regulations that are going on right now push so much into content marketing's direction because all content marketing wants to do is get your permission to communicate because you're sending them valuable information. So it works out great. So we want to take all those other channels that we're building audiences on and try to put them up to a more valuable single connection to our audience, which is right now email. I mean, you could also say there's a lot of companies creating membership structures, which would also be email, by the way. And if you look at how social media companies build their relationships with that's not through the platform. The number one thing they do is they get your email address. That's the way that they do it. We want to make sure that we're in regulations with all these privacy issues. We get opt-in permission and we have some kind of control because we have no control on other platforms. So that's in turn, why is email the biggest opportunity in 2020? All you have to do is look at some of the examples. I mean, I use North American examples. If you look at BuzzFeed, if you look at New York Times, Washington Post, you look at the media companies that are successful today and you wonder, why are they successful? Why are they successful and other media companies aren't successful? It's because of their email newsletter program. So if you look at New York Times, they have a 60 or 70 targeted individual e-newsletters that are driving their paid membership program. So again, they're doing the same thing. They're getting their free sign up for their email newsletters. They build a relationship with them and then they sign them up for their paid membership model. So BuzzFeed's done the same way. BuzzFeed has been able to survive through all this and Facebook taking away all their organic reach because of their email newsletter program. And for whatever reason, we talked about this before, corporate marketers relegated email for product updates and spam e-newsletters for the last 5 years. And the opportunity is, if you have a really good e-newsletter, really very much original, very much differentiated, very valuable to the audience, that's maybe the most valuable thing you could do as a content marketer today. I've seen them done. I've seen short ones work well. Like New York Times has some short ones. I've seen aggregated ones work well, and I've seen long form content work well. The only differentiator that I can see is that it's not something that you can get anywhere else. Where I think a lot of email newsletters went wrong, and you saw this for 10 years almost. It was, sign up to our e-newsletter, and then what they do is they have blog title abstract, basically something I can get anywhere. I open up New York Times. I read the New York Times online e-newsletter, daily e-newsletter every day. And it's probably like 1,000 words. And it has links to maybe 30 to 40 articles in it. It's somebody takes a lot of time and effort to put this together. And they've said, can we put an e-newsletter together that will give one person the entire news coverage for the day? That's only can be found in that e-newsletter. So with my random newsletter that I've been doing, that there's a middle portion of that is something that I write only for the e-newsletter first and foremost. Sometimes I repurpose after the fact as a podcast, but first and foremost, I just give something away you can't get anywhere else. So that's, I think, the differentiation. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be short. Is it truly differentiated and valuable to that audience at that time? I have this notebook here that I take around to most places. It's a weird thing that every time I go out and I observe something, I'm like, is that something relevant that my audience might want more information on? I read a book. I don't care what the book's on. If I'm reading a book, I'm listening to a podcast. The only problem is I go running and I listen to podcasts a lot, and I sometimes I don't have something to take notes on. So I either have to stop and type in a note. I'm sure there's a better way to do it. Or when I get back, I write down the notes. So it's just that I think that's the one thing that I love about content marketing professionals is they're curious people. And if you're just curious and you're telling a story for another audience, you're always trying to figure out, well, what story can I tell today? One is the actual writing of it probably takes me an hour, but the preparation time is different because let's say that Queen. Yeah. So I was probably 3 hours of watching and prepping and reading articles and things like that. How long does it take you up front? Well, we spend 2 weeks picking articles, and then we spend another hour or so reading them, and then another 30 minutes writing notes on them. So it's never creating the content has the shortest time is actually creating the content. It's all the upfront in the planning of it. And I think that's just the way it always is. Yeah, I think it's a personal preference. I'm not going to get them out and show you, but I have all types of these. I probably going back 20 years, I've got 100 and some of these. I've tried Evernote. I really wanted Evernote to work because I'm like, oh, this is fantastic because I can go on the road and I can write it, whatever. And for some reason, it didn't sink in with me to type it. It was only real. And by the way, I doodle. Like I draw pictures and I draw charts and things like that to really make it real. Like I was talking about the new version of Content Inc. and I've got a new model. I'm drawing a new picture with that, and it's very hard. I mean, you can do that on Evernote, obviously. I even got the thing where there was the program where you can write down on a notepad and then it scans it in or takes it into Evernote. I didn't like that. It's terrible. I really tried. I guess I'm just old school. I don't know, but I really do. For some reason, it's more memorable to me and easier for me to do it on paper. So, but I think it's a personal preference. I know, like Robert Rose, he's Evernote everything. He's got 72 different files of Evernote that works well for him, which that's great. I wish I could do that because what's really good with Robert is he can go search something. I'm hoping that I wrote about it somewhere and then I can call up a blog post and say, oh, there it is, which is what I normally do, actually.
最後までご視聴いただきありがとうございました。コンテンツマーケティングというものが、これまで過去、世界的な経済危機を契機として大きく成長発展してきたという、そういう歴史的な性格を持っていると。今のこのコロナの状況というものは、まさに、このコンテンツマーケティングを次の第3のフェーズに押し上げ、成長させる、一つの新たな契機になるだろうというメッセージを、ジョーは、話をしていましたけれども、そういった俯瞰的な状況理解というものができたりなど、いろいろと私としては気づきがあることが、多かったインタビューです。こちらをご視聴くださった、皆様におかれましても、少しでも気づきになる、ことが、含まれるインタビューに、なっていたら、とても嬉しく思います。